We pray your presence will be before us, everyone who serves in this decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be good for our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Remain standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all. Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counsel Leahy.
Here.
Counsel Mercier.
Here.
Counsel Milonazo.
Here.
Counsel Noon.
Here.
Mayor Samaras.
Here.
Counsel Cirillo.
Here.
Counsel Conway.
Here.
Counsel Elliott.
Here.
Counsel Kennedy.
Here.
That's 9 present.
Thank you. I need a motion to accept and place on file the minutes of the City Council meeting January 16th for acceptance.
So moved.
Moved by Council Mercier.
Second.
Seconded by Council Conway. Thank you. Being it's not 7 o'clock yet, we'll hold off on the general public hearing and go to communications from the city manager. Mr. Manager, okay, we have A, Lowell High School feasibility costs. Any discussion? Councilor Milonazo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Manager, for the report. My question has to do with other related costs that we, I believe, spent on, for example, Article 97. I just don't know where those costs would be, and if they were that exorbitant. They probably were not, but I know that we did some design work for some of the parks. I just don't know if there were any costs associated with the Article 97.
That's a great question. Most of it was staff time,
Okay.
but if there was, that's a good thing to look at because the designers did do that softball field
Right.
in the parking lot. So that's a great question. Let us look into that
Okay.
and supplement the report with that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. Mr. Manager, given the amount of money that's shown here that's been spent already, do you anticipate that we will need additional funds going forward, or do you think that the amount of money that we have appropriated should cover the total costs of the feasibility study?
That's another great question. I think a lot is going to depend on the February 1st meeting that we have with the MSBA, because at that meeting, the MSBA will tell us how many options we have to look at and how deeply we have to look at those options. And that, in large part, is going to dictate what the cost is going to be. So I think we'll have a better cost estimate for the council meeting after the February 1st meeting.
Okay. And it also appears by the report that you gave us that most of the money ended up going to Perkins Eastman rather than to Skanska, huh, so far?
Yes, Skanska is the OPM.
Yep.
They, Perkins Eastman does the real design work, which is much more intensive than the OPM work.
Okay, so you would anticipate that that Skanska's costs would be as the project goes forward through construction?
Theirs would be
Is that
more
right?
than Skanska's, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Councilor Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Mr. Manager, just following up on a couple of questions, and I think this report is helpful. I think that's why, I filed the motion to get a report on exactly where we are at. And as you mentioned, I think at the next MSBA meeting will give us a better idea exactly what the requirements are. And at that point in time, or shortly thereafter, Skanska or the Perkins Eastman, they should be able to give us an idea of exactly what the cost is. Because at the last meeting, it was hard to decipher exactly what the requirements are will be moving forward. I know there was a general discussion about options, but at the very least, we're not starting from scratch per se, but it's still going to be a significant undertaking. And I don't want to, I'm trying to choose my words carefully because I know there's still a lot of questions that we did ask that will be hopefully answered at the next meeting.
Yeah, no, they're all great questions, and I think that February 1st meeting is going to be critical for us to ask those questions specifically. How many options do we have to vet? and how deeply do we have to vet them. And I think then that will give us an opportunity to make a more educated calculation of what the true costs are going to be for the next.
So of the 2 million, we appropriated 2 million, correct? Of that 2 million, we have expended almost 1.4. Does that include any encumbrances, or that includes any encumbrances? It does not.
No, it does not include any income.
Okay, so some of those costs that are still outstanding will have to be factored into that 1.3. Okay, I don't see encumbrances here.
Can Mr. Baldwin
Yeah,
just?
please.
To respond to your question, there's an additional $521,000 encumbered under contract between Skanska and
Okay.
Perkins Eastman. So
I
that
do
would
see
be
that.
on top of the year-to-date expenditures, but it's under contract between the two contractors.
Okay, so it's encumbered, but we haven't charged against that
Correct,
encumbrance.
that's correct.
Okay, so that's good to know. So last question, what is the reimbursement rate for these costs associated with the feasibility at this point, and are additional costs that we are going to have to expend for the next step, or to change our preferred option, are those eligible or expenses, or are we going to find that out at the next meeting?
To your first question, we just checked the ProPay system, which is what MSBA uses for tracking reimbursements, and we've been at the 78%
Okay.
reimbursement rate, and we'll find out about initial future costs as they're determined whether they're eligible.
Okay, good. Thank you. I think this is helpful to bring down with us, and moving forward, we'll see what that is going to be. But 78% is good. I wish the rest of the construction was at that number. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any further discussion?
Yep, Mr. Mayor, just so that we
Councilor
don't create the wrong impression, it could be that there's enough money, the $2 million will satisfy the whole thing, and that we're far enough along with the options as they are, that the additional work that will need to be done going forward will be covered by the remaining amount of money. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, it could be, but I don't want to say that right now until
February 1st.
Until February 1st, and they
Right.
tell us exactly what we have to say.
We're all set? All right, thank you. Next piece of information, LTC. Any discussion, LTC? Thank you. Laotian Monument, any discussion? Councilor Mercy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, what you saw for the report is exactly what's happening. The Laotian people, they're putting together meetings to try to secure the funding to have that monument become a reality. So thank you to Kevin Coughlin, who's working very hard on this as well. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, thank you. Next, D, high water costs. Any discussion? Councilor Leahy?
Thank you. To the manager, do we know, as of now, like how are there any estimated water bills going out, or we pretty much?
Mr. Young, are there any estimated water bills, or are they actuals?
Right now, we've got it down to around 110 estimated going out. And basically, that's because of the over 22,000 accounts. We're down to around 300 that need to have the new meters changed. So there's 300 still out there that we're working on tracking down and replacing. Those are a large majority of the estimated reads. And sometimes we do have the new readers we'll may estimate a few times. So we're correcting those as we go along also.
And the complaints are way down?
Way down, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilor Elliott and Councilor Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me, this is a good report. I think more importantly, as you mentioned in the report, the meter replacement that has, it's better technology, and it cuts down on, inaccuracies. My question is on these new meters, because more often than not, we get phone calls from people that say, my tenant, or I went away and my toilet ran, or something of that nature. Is there something that folks, including myself and others, can put an alarm when, because right now it's all electronic and meters are read via a wireless system. So is there, at the expense of the homeowner, for instance, if I want to put something on that, at a certain point, you know that it's not regular water usage?
The current system does not allow that. We're actually going to be scheduling an upgrade of the software system sometime towards the end of the year. That'll allow us to do that, and it'll actually allow citizens to have access to their account.
Okay.
So that's in the future, that's what we're planning on doing.
And that's good to know. And the second reason why I bring this up is, for instance, for city buildings, if there is such an alarm on the water pipe, that may not have happened. And it is new technology, and it has been forwarded to me, and I think it's something that we should look at. Particularly, I think there's some, at the police department, there are spaces where this could possibly happen, but it is an alarm that goes next to the meter or on the meter that can be read from a remote location. And at a certain point, an alarm goes off that, guess what, you have hundreds of gallons of water that are being flowed, that's flowing. And that should be at least a stopgap measure. So, okay, but we are looking into that. That's good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Council Milonazo, Council Kennedy, then Council Leahy.
Thank you. My question has more to do with the fact that it's a regional water utility. Do we actually hear from Chelmsford and Tingsboro, Tewksbury, and Dracut when they have issues with their water bill, or do they do that within their own community?
They do that within their own community. But we will be looking at, Council, if you recall, we did the intermunicipal agreements for wastewater a while back.
Right.
We are going to be looking into the intermunicipal agreements with the towns for water for more favorable conditions for the city.
Okay, thank you. And to follow up on Councilor Elliott's really excellent point about the alarm, not only could you do an alarm like Councilor Elliott talked about, but you could also do a low heat alarm, meaning that an alarm to go off if the heat in any municipal building went below a certain temperature. You could do that as well. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Council Kennedy?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if we could all practice a little patience. I have a motion on the agenda this evening having to do with water leak devices for later on in the meeting this evening. So I just wanted to point that out for anybody that didn't look at the agenda before tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Council Leahy?
Just to get back to what Councilor Elliott brought up, if I called the water department, though, you could tell me if my meter's running, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So do you flag those, though? What if someone's meter is running?
Well, with 22,000 accounts, it's difficult because they're not just looking at the meters. We're
Okay.
doing closings and things like that. With the present system, it's not possible.
All right.
With the new system that we're going to go to,
Right,
it
that
will
might
be.
give you a printout
Yes. Well, it's usually set up if a certain account is, once you establish a flow rate, if a certain percentage of whatever we set to choose goes over that percentage of use, then it'll be flagged.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Further discussion? Thank you. The next is process of appealing unusually high water and sewer bills. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Council Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. Mr. Manager, could you just review that process just for the viewers at home so that they can be aware of that? In the past 6 months, I've come across, or I've been contacted by at least 3 parties who have had extremely high water bills, and I don't think it's clear as to what the process is or how people can appeal their water bill if they feel that it's unfair.
Mr. Young, you're on the water board, so can you explain what the process is?
Well, typically, if they have a bill, they would call the water plant, and we would look into it. And if they're not satisfied with our explanation, they can give a written request for us to look into it further. And if we find that there's a discrepancy, we can abate it at that time. If not, then the citizen has a right to appeal to the water board. The water board's a 3-member board that'll listen to their account and make a decision based upon the evidence that the citizen would present to the board.
Mr. Mayor, and can do they get a written report on how that's been adjudicated?
Yes, they will get a written summary of the findings.
And who's on the water board?
Myself, the DPW commissioner, and a private citizen.
Okay. And how often does the board meet?
As often as necessary. We try not to have a lot of cases. Typically, when we get 4 or 5, we'll meet. We met It was been quite a while since we've met. I would say about 5-6 months ago. We had 5 cases to review.
Okay. So in the past 6 months, I know that I had at least 3 people contact me who I assumed had gone to the board or had appointments. And what you're saying is there has not been a meeting in 5 or 6 months?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any that have been brought to my attention to bring to the board. I know there are some abatements that we are working on
Okay.
without board involvement, so it could be those.
So it could be that they just haven't gotten that far along in the process yet?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So how long does that take, that appeal for that? How long does it take for you to come back with an answer to them before they decide to go before the board?
We try to do it as soon as we can, but obviously it takes time to investigate. We try to do it as expediently as possible.
But what does that mean? Does that mean 2 months, 3 months, 1 month?
We try to do it within a month.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Councilor Mercian?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mark, if they pay their bill, does that assume that they're more or less agreeing to the findings? Or so I get a very high bill, and I protest the fact that I think something's wrong, and I don't pay it. Am I going to get late charges? So in fear of that, I would then want to pay it. But am I assuming responsibility because I paid that? Or
No.
What do you recommend that I do?
Well, I recommend that you pay the bill.
I know, but so I'm paying.
But
so-
it doesn't admit culpability. We still investigate, and if it's incorrect, we will abate and make a change.
You'll abate it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, thank you. Next, Canal Bridge update. Any discussion?
Hi.
Councilor Noon?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the manager, I thank you for the report, Mr. Manager. Could you please give overview of these projects to the viewer at home? Because I feel that this is an important project, it's a big project, it's a project that need to happen for safety reason. Also, could you also give who's the partners and what's the cost associated with it and what's the share among those partners, please? Then I have a few questions for you.
Yeah, Claire Rick has been working, the point person on this. So Claire, could you just give a summary of the Enel Bridge program?
Sure, no problem. So I'm actually very excited to be here tonight. It's been a very, very quick 18 months design process for these bridges. In 2015, we received a Tiger grant from the Federal Highway Authority for about $13.5 million, $13.389 million for the replacement or rehabilitation of 6 canal bridges in downtown Lowell. And we then, in partnership with Enel and with UMass Lowell, funded a roughly $4 million design contract for these bridges. At this point, all construction documents, permitting right-of-way acquisition have been complete. The project has been advertised since last August by Mass DOT. With the bid documents, all construction documents became available on January 11th. The bid opening was originally scheduled for January 30th. However, last night I received an email from Mass DOT that pushed the bid opening back officially to, Tuesday, February 13th at 2 p.m. That was at the request of the Construction Industries of Massachusetts, who petitioned the FHWA directly for that extension. Over the course of the design phase, the project engineering phase, we discovered that the scope of work on several of these bridges was more than was originally anticipated at the time of the grant. The construction cost for the project went up. We ended up needing to do more work on some of these than we had originally thought. So once we got to about 25% design in mid-March, it was looking like the project was going to be up to about $11 million over the original Tiger grant, the amount of the Tiger grant. Working with our partners Enel, UMass Lowell, the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, FHWA, the state delegation, the federal delegation, we were able to bring those project costs down by petitioning to remove one of the bridges from the project, and that is the bridge at Suffolk Street over the Northern Canal. It was determined that that bridge while necessary, certainly to have the rehabilitation work done on it, was the bridge that carried the least amount of traffic out of all of the other bridges in the project. We continue to pursue funding to do the work on that bridge. We applied for a MassWorks grant. We will apply for a MassWorks grant, I'm sure, this year as well, and pursue additional funds to bring that bridge back, back into the scope of not of this project, but as a separate project. The good news with regard to that is we did get to 100% design on that bridge. That bridge is shovel ready. Which makes it that much more, attractive, or that much more competitive in a grant situation. So once we removed that bridge from the scope of work, and we saved roughly $3.5 million, the Massachusetts Department of Transportation agreed to split the remainder of the project delta with the city. And so we approached the council last June asking to reprogram bridge funds that were already in the capital plan to cover that shortfall. And MassDOT agreed to pay for the other half, beginning in federal fiscal year 2019. Anyway, the project is fully funded at this point, which is great. So that's basically where we are today. We expect for the bid opening will be Tuesday, February 13th, with an award date roughly March 30, contracting in April, pre-construction activities in April, and then site construction beginning by the summer.
Thank you. And as far as the partnerships and the contributions, is we received a Tiger grant from the federal government for $13.4 million. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts is contributing $3.5 million. We previously contributed $600,000, and we're asking for an additional $3.5 this evening. The University of Massachusetts at Lowell has contributed $2 million, and Enel has contributed $1.35 million.
So Mr. Mayor, through you, Mayor, to the managers, so the original cost, how much was the original cost, and how much was the funding gap, basically?
The funding gap after was about $11 million. We reduced that by eliminating the bridge that Claire Ricker talked about, and so that left a delta of approximately $7 million, which the Commonwealth of Massachusetts agreed to split with us 3.5 apiece. And that's what we're requesting tonight from the City Council. 3.6, I'm sorry, 3.6.
Okay. Claire indicated that the one of the bridge that we're going to take off the list, that is Suffolk Bridge. Is there any plan at all? Is it take off completely, or is there any plans to do it, put it back on? Because my understanding that there is agreement with Enel that you have to do it, come back online 2020.
No, we did not make it part of this Tiger program, but it is the bridge that needed the least amount of repairs because Enel had done some work on it previously. But we have applied for a MassWorks grant, and when we applied for this MassWorks grant, it includes money to do that bridge in the MassWorks grant. I've talked recently with former Congressman Marty Meehan, who's very involved in this, who remains involved in this, along with Mr. McCann, who is our consultant in Washington, who is continuing to work with the Tiger program. My conversations with Mr. McCann is that the Trump administration is going to be coming out with an infrastructure program in the near future, which we'll look at. So we continue to look at possibilities to, offset the cost that the City Council is going to vote, hopefully, and then get the money to repair that bridge.
Does that mean that you're going to continue to apply for MassWorks grant? Did we do it this year, and what's the result of it this year?
We've already applied for the MassWorks grant, and the MassWorks grant is a rolling grant. They award them, and so it's still in the mix, and we're still lobbying to hopefully get a MassWorks grant.
So we did apply this year, but we did not get result yet?
Right.
Okay, when do you expect the result from MassWorks?
It could happen anytime. It's a rolling grant, so it's not like they make all the decisions on one day. Is that they can, because some communities may apply for it, get it, but then they don't go forward with it, so money becomes available or extra money comes available. So they continue to award these grants on a rolling fashion.
So how much did we apply for in this MassWorks grant?
It was 8
$8 million. Yes.
Say, if we apply for MassWorks grant, 8 million, so this $3.6 million that that the council is going to vote tonight, we may not need it at all.
If we get the grant, we would just pay this off.
So who do we need to call? Senator Lee Nunhu?
Oh, I call every day.
Okay.
But you can call too if you want.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Okay.
Councilor Cirillo.
Hi, yes, through you to the manager. Thank you. This is an excellent report. Thank you very much for this report. I would like you to speak a little bit to the complete streets with regards to walkability and bikeability on the bridges. I think that's really important for our residents to hear. And also, is this report online so that people will have access to it?
Sure. So we maintain a website for this project, which is lowellbridges.com. I think the documents that are currently up there that are most relevant to this discussion, we have everything that was presented at the 25% design public hearing, which includes the construction concept plans, the property plans, the existing conditions on the bridges, and then some section plans too that more accurately show kind of the lane widths and what the intention is with regard to the right-of-way on some of these bridges. These bridges are footprint bridges, which means they're going to go right exactly into the same place that they were. The replacement bridges certainly, and then the rehab bridges will just stay where they are. Insofar as is possible in the right-of-way, we've accommodated bike lanes and pedestrian, certain pedestrian accommodation. The bridge at Pawtucket over Northern is I think, mostly used as a pedestrian bridge and a bike bridge. For the students up there, we have a 10-foot multi-use sidewalk area that should accommodate both uses up there. In terms of the new bridge at Pawtucket over Pawtucket, currently it shows shoulders on each side to be future bike lanes as we establish more bike lanes on Pawtucket Street. That's it.
Excellent, thank you.
You all set? Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree this is a very good report, and it was a very detailed explanation of the financing of this. And I guess the good news is that the scope at 25%, it was discovered that a lot more work was being done rather than getting into the project and having to go through the change order after change order. So it's good news. And to some degree, the bad news is that it's a significant cost increase. But I think the economic development piece makes, and knowing that it is shovel-ready, that it's 100% design, does put us in a much more competitive position at the city, as you mentioned, Mr. Manager. It's not a time, the MassWorks grant, it's not once a year. There is capital money that is set aside in the state, and depending upon the nature and urgency and I guess viability of the project and the economic benefits, I think we're in a good position. We'll keep our fingers crossed. But I did read in here, my question is about the timing, and as mentioned in the report, they're all going to be done simultaneously. My question is, from a traffic management perspective, we are challenged now, knowing that 5 bridges, and including the Market Street, that'll be 6, will be under construction, will complicate the traffic patterns. How can we mitigate, if that's even possible, the traffic impact of all these bridges?
Right. So it was determined, going over preliminary traffic management plans for this project, that we could do this project, all 5 bridges at the same time. Construction phasing will be, somewhat at the discretion of the contractor. They may decide to start on 2. They may decide to do the 2 new bridges first. They may decide to do 2 new bridges and, one of the, less intensive bridges at the same time. But we do have the capacity to do all 5 bridges at the same time. There are no planned travel closures, minus Pawtucket over Northern. That will stay open to pedestrians and bikes, but we will close traffic on that bridge. There will be at least 1 travel lane maintained on every other bridge at the same time. This is a plan that we've gone over with LFD, LPD, other first responders in the area, and it has been determined that we could work on all 5 bridges at the same time.
Okay, just one last question, Mr. Mayor, because I know this will be an ongoing discussion. So, is this being bid as one construction project, meaning the 6 bridges by one contractor? And we think that there are companies out there that will bid on this, because it's, all these bridges, I mean, some of them are 2-year projects, others are less.
That's correct. At this time, we are looking to, it's kind of at the recommendation of Mass DOT. We will have one contractor on all bridges. I think that what we wanted to avoid was just sort of one team going from bridge to bridge to bridge to bridge for 5
Right.
years.
I agree.
But that's the way it's set up now. One contractor will bid the entire project.
And there are provisions that he's not going to perform exactly how you mentioned. It's going to be all the bridges on the schedule that's laid out, and there won't be that time delay. Okay, I guess it makes some sense, but.
Council Kennedy, then Council Milonazo.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Why is it best to give it all to one contractor? In other words, why wouldn't you want to bid it both ways, so that you divide each bridge up and make each bridge available to an individual contractor who maybe has a capacity to do one bridge or even 2 bridges, but not all of them? What's the upside of doing it all giving it all to one contractor who has to be big, right, in order to be able to do all of that simultaneously?
So the FHWA and MassDOT are provided a lot of administrative support to this project, and that is their prescribed method to give it to one contractor. Easier to manage the grant, and it's easier to manage the project. MassDOT will be on the ground for us, doing day-to-day engineering of the project, and between the FHWA standard and the MassDOT standard, they wanted to do one contract.
Okay, so the only reason we're doing it is because the Commonwealth thinks it's the best way to do it, basically?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could I?
I still have the floor, I think.
I was just going to help.
If I could just get back to the money for a second. In a few minutes, we'll be having a public hearing on the $3.6 million. And just to follow up on some of the questions that Councilor Noon was asking, the $3.6 million that you're asking us to appropriate, that should cover everything, right? And that would only be defrayed in 2 ways. One would be if we got an additional mass grant, and the other way would be if we were to get some more money from the federal government from the current administration that doesn't look favorably on Tiger grants, but may have something like that in the infrastructure bill. Am I correct on that?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And so when you said that you spoke to Mr. McCann today or yesterday? Or?
Last week I talked to both Marty Meehan and Mr. McCann.
And what did he think the likelihood was that we would be able to get money from that infrastructure bill?
He wasn't positive about the Tiger grant having any more money available, but he didn't summarily dismiss the infrastructure. He does recognize the challenges that Massachusetts would face, but he didn't tell me forget about it.
So in the way the conversation went, was it more as if we're not getting any more money from the Tiger grant, but we might be able to get money out of the infrastructure bill? Is that kind of the way it went?
Yeah.
Okay. So really, our best shot is probably the additional money from the Commonwealth?
Yeah, and we've gone beyond just looking at MassWorks. We're also reaching out to Mass DOT also to see if there's any other money that's available somewhere. So we're looking at all different pots of money for the bridge project. Mass DOT is 100% behind this project, and hopefully we can squeeze some more money from them.
Okay, thank you.
I'll come back to you, Mr. Elliott. Council Milonazo.
Thank you, Mayor. My question has to do with, first of all, I agree with the way it is being bid, where 5 of them are being put together, but was there any discussion about whether or not we would have a list of alternatives in the bid package, meaning that do we prioritize, say, the top 1, 2, and 3, and then the event that the bid is really outrageously beyond scope, beyond budget, I should say, beyond budget, are there alternates that a general contractor can bid or bring in after the general bid, I guess is the question.
So there was some discussion of including that bridge at Suffolk over Northern as an add-on to the project. However, there is also concern that putting a whole bridge in there as an adult would drive up the cost of the bid to the point where the project would be unfundable
Okay.
at that point.
Okay.
So,
And then my second question, final question, the fact that the Suffolk Street over the Northern Canal Bridge is superstructure replacement, does that benefit the fact that, as the manager said, we're actually looking at infrastructure money? Or am I mixing the superstructure versus infrastructure? I guess is my question, whether or not it would be more likely to get the mass infrastructure money because it's only superstructure replacement.
so I've learned a lot about bridges over the past year or so. The superstructure just refers to just like the part that you're driving on.
Right.
I don't think that it would make much of a difference. The project is the project.
Okay.
So, it does qualify as an infrastructure project that is shovel-ready.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Councilor Elliott?
Yeah, I was just going to help Councilor Kennedy answer the question regarding why Mass DOT will do this, because on many large construction projects, there are mobilization costs that are factored in, and they're factored in every single project. So by virtue of the economy of scale, that would reduce the mobilization cost that can be included. Second is retainage, and third is change orders. When you are doing multiple projects, then the likeliness of some of the costs being able to absorb in doing multiple projects makes sense. But it's really mobilization costs that if you do one now or two now, then you have to, bring in trailers and a lot of the costs that are factored in. It can be, a significant percentage. So I just thought I think it makes all the sense in the world to do them in this timetable, because we just want to get them done while the money is there and knowing that we can go out and get some more. So I just think this is very important. It's exciting, but it's going to alleviate a lot of the problems. Last thing, the two bridges that were done, Mr. Manager, because I also think that NL should probably share, if possible, in some of these costs. And I don't know if the agreement was for a fixed dollar amount from NL based upon the conditions of the bridges when we had to take them over or not, but I think to some degree, because of the significant work that has to be done, is there a way for us to get money from them, or at least try to defer some of these costs first and foremost? And secondly, the Broadway Street Bridge and the Market Street Bridge, are we doing those, or is that an L, and is that on our dime? I forget, because I know the Tiger Grant was for these 6 bridges.
So the Broadway, I've driven over several times. It's really in nice shape.
Right.
We've negotiated, how long, the Market Street Bridge, who's doing the Market Street Bridge?
So the Market Street Bridge is the same thing. MassDOT, it's our bridge, but MassDOT is overseeing the construction, just like they'll be overseeing the Tiger Bridge construction.
Right.
That's the Market Street over the Western Canal here. Yeah. And
Okay,
then,
so they're both owned by us now, but the Commonwealth is paying for the construction of the Market Street Bridge.
Great.
yes.
And we have negotiated at length with NL relative to recouping more costs. We'll continue to do that, but at this point in time, this is the best.
Yeah, no, I don't
Yep,
think
no,
we
I
should
know.
delay the project by any stretch, but by the same token, and I know they've been, it's been a challenge with them even to get to this point, but, we're doing a favor. We need to do it from a traffic perspective, because it's one bridge after the next, and this is going to make, moving in the city a lot better. So, okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Leahy?
Can I just
Councilor
ask
Member?
one other quick question? The Suffolk Street Bridge over the canal, that's the one at the Wamisit buildings?
The Wanalancet Mills.
Wanalancet?
Yep.
So when we said super structure replacement, that's just the surface of it?
That's correct. That was one of the bridges that it was discovered that some of the substructure was not in the condition that we had hoped
Right.
it would be, which really kind of expanded the scope of work on that bridge. But it will boil down to a superstructure replacement. That's the scope of the project, with some substructure work.
Okay, it will have some because I thought that one was in pretty bad condition. Didn't we close it down a few years ago? Or we almost closed it?
No, they closed it down, but NL did repairs to it
Oh,
enough
they
to
did
open it up.
a lot of repairs on it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilor Noon?
Thank you, Mayor, through you to the managers. I agree with Councilor Elliott that we should go after Enel for more money. That said, I know that originally Enel only put in $750,000, right? You're able to get almost over $250,000, right, from them? Because now it's $1.2 million that Enel is going to put in, right? Is that correct?
1.35.
3.5. See, there's more. So you're right. We should get some more. Thank you.
We all set? Thank you. All right, well, now we're going to go into the informational part of the meeting. Letter to Secretary Pollock regarding Rourke Bridge. Any discussion on that? Councilor Noon?
I just want to thank Senator Eileen Donahue for sending the letters to the Secretary and advocating on our behalf. Thank you.
All set, thank you. Next, Soul Smart designation. Any discussion on that? Mr. Manager?
I just want to point this out, and again, look, Catherine Moses was here last week. Catherine, could you just come up for a second? This, to me, is really exciting, is that we're being recognized as a gold community for promoting solar energy. We're always looking to save money for energy for our residents, and could you just briefly explain what this is?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, City Council, for giving me this opportunity. The Soul Smart Designation Program is a program through the Department of Energy. And what it does, it actually quantifies different steps that communities can take in order to make it easier, faster, cheaper to go solar in their communities. So there are a number of different things that you can get designations in. We actually got a special distinction in our inspections services. And it's really unique in that it says to the solar industry, this is a community where you want to do solar, because they have processes in place to help to expedite your permitting. And we have processes in place to allow solar by right. We have processes in place to help consumers understand what all the different choices are in your solar search and what you're doing. And so we're one of only, the communication said we were one of 4 gold communities in the state of Massachusetts, but at the end of last week, there was a 5th community designated. So it really is quite an honor for the city.
Thank you, Catherine.
We're all set, Mr. Manager? Okay, thank you. Next, the Warming Center. Mr. Manager.
I really wanted Chief Winwood to come tonight from the fire department to briefly explain what we did during this recent cold freeze. We actually kept the warming center open for 2 weeks, which is unprecedented, and I just want you to just explain to the council and the residents at home briefly what we did over that 2-week period.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. So, under the direction of City Manager Murphy, we opened a warming center at the Senior Center. The last week in December, the first week in January, we had an unprecedented cold snap. So the first week, we opened the center for the citizens of Lowell that were either homeless or there may have had a power outage where they lost their heat, or they may have had broken water pipes that had to leave their apartments and their homes. It was very successful. The second week, we were faced with an even bigger problem. We had as we all know, we had a blizzard with 14 inches of snow, high winds, followed by, below zero temperatures and minus 40-degree wind chills, which is certainly life-threatening for anybody that tries to spend the night outside or that might lose their heat in their house or have a big water problem. So with help from the police department, the fire department, the staff at the senior center, the health department, we staffed this center mostly at night the first week, and then the second week after the snowstorm, we staffed it 24/7. And the second week, we turned it into a regional warming center for anyone in Greater Lowell. And by making it a regional warming center, we were able to bring in the American Red Cross, who helped with our staffing. They brought in more food. So we supplied cots and blankets, food, water, and mostly heat for people that needed it during this 2-week period. So we had a total of 362 people sign in. And on an average night, we had about 40 to 50 people. And it's a very daunting task to take a facility that's not designed for it and to house 40 to 50 people, to feed them, and to keep order in the place. So that, the police department helped out, the firefighter EMTs, they had medical equipment, they had medical kits, defibrillators, Narcan, oxygen. And we had a few minor incidents, but nothing major. We undoubtedly saved a lot of lives during that 2-week period. And I just wanted to thank the staff at the senior center, the police department, the fire department, the health department, the American Red Cross, and the city manager's office. Everyone came together and did a great job, and it certainly saved some lives. And if anyone has any questions, I can take those.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, when you say 362 people, do you mean over the course of the 2 weeks?
Yeah, what we did is when people came in, we made them sign in, and then they would leave. And every time they came back, they would sign in again. So some of the people were repeat customers. But we had a set of rules. We made sure people signed in. They were searched every time they came in. They weren't allowed to go in and out after 10 o'clock at night, so they wouldn't disrupt other people. They had to smoke 50 feet away from the building. So we set up a series of rules, and the sign-in sheet was big so we could have an accountability of who was in the building and who wasn't. So on an average night, we had about 40 people. But altogether, we had 362 sign in.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Thank you. Chief Winwood, thank you for the great work. Thank you. Councilor Kennedy?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, just one question. The 40 people, or the 360 people, what percentage of those people were homeless people, and what percentage were people who just had no heat at their home?
The great majority were homeless people. And what we did was we took the burden off the shelter on Middlesex Street. When it's below zero, they let in a lot more people, and they set up cots in the common areas. And they get overwhelmed when it's below zero, and it becomes a big fire hazard to have people sleeping all over the place. So we took the burden off them. We kept in contact with them, and we had a system set up where we could bus people back and forth to either facility if one facility got too crowded. So it definitely took the burden off them. We were available to people that lost their heat or that had a water problem. We didn't get a lot of those people. A lot of those people would go stay with relatives or friends, or they'd get people to come in to fix the problem, and they were able to get back into their own homes. And another thing we were anticipating was a lot of power outages during the blizzard. Fortunately, we didn't get those. Back in October, we had over a third of the city was without power, some for 3 or 4 days. If that had happened with below zero temperatures, we would have had a big problem. So we had the facility set up. We had a plan in place to house any people that needed it. Fortunately, we didn't get the power outages this time.
What would be the capacity? What would be the point where you just couldn't handle anymore? Let's say that there was a big outage, and it was -degree temperatures, and people had no heat. And so you had a lot of people that went there because they had no heat in their apartment or their house. What would be the total capacity that you could handle there before it just got too much?
If we opened up the upstairs, we could handle up to about 250 people. That would be very difficult. But we have plans in place. If there's a bigger emergency, we would use the high school gym. And something really big, we could use the Songa Center. And we also kept in touch with the folks at MEMA down in Framingham. And they have a software program, and there were about 6 warming centers set up around the Commonwealth. So we all kept in touch with MEMA. And if things got out of control in one area of the state, we could bus people around to different shelters around the Commonwealth. I know Boston, Worcester had shelters set up.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Everybody else said thank you. All right, it's after 7 o'clock. We have the general public hearing.
Motion to accept.
Oh, I'm sorry. I need a motion to accept and place on file.
So moved.
Councilor?
Second.
Thank you. Councilor Mercia, Councilor Kennedy, thank you. Okay. So we have the loan order for additional bridge repair, waive the first reading and give the second reading, to borrow $3,600,000 to pay additional costs of bridge repairs and all the costs incidental and related to thereto. Okay. I'd like to open the hearing for those in favor. Mr. Conabaldon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of the Finance Department, I'd like to speak in favor of this loan order. The City Council back in June had voted to reallocate funds that had been programmed into the city's comprehensive 5-year capital plan for this purpose. This vote on the loan order tonight substantiates that vote and dedicates the $3.6 million towards funding what had been a $11 million deficit in the project budget. The Finance Department has worked very closely with Planning and Development on closing that deficit and making this project happen. So I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Does anyone else want to speak in favor? Any discussion? Okay, close the in favor aspect. Go to those who are not in favor, who are in opposition. Anyone in opposition? Anyone in opposition? Close that hearing. I need a motion to adopt and refer to the clerk's office for 20 days
So moved.
Second. By Mr. Elliott and seconded by Councilor Conway. I need a roll call vote.
Mr. Mayor, on the motion, just question, just follow up, I think it was already stated. So, in the likeliness that we do receive the MassWorks grant, how does we're going to go out for a long-term, well, you're going to do a bond anticipation note, and by that time, will we be able to forgive this portion of it? I mean, because once it's bonded, it's bonded. We can't.
To your question, we would use short-term notes to finance the project, perhaps using the federal grant money first. The language of the loan order does allow for the amount to be financed by the city to be reduced by any federal or state grants that are received. So the city will be able to reduce the amount needed to borrow by any grants that we get.
Without penalty?
Without any penalty, that's correct.
Oh, that's great. Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
Thank you. All right, I need a roll call vote. Thank you.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercier.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Thank you. We'll now go to communication again from the city manager. To accept the resignation of Nick Spiros, Lowell Cultural Council, I need a motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Kennedy, seconded by Councilor Cirillo. Thank you.
Mayor.
Again, communication to accept the resignation of Quinn Lawrence, Sustainability Council. I need a motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Kennedy, seconded by Councilor Noon.
Mayor, Mayor,
Yes.
may I also, through the manager, through you to the manager, ask the manager to send a letter, thank you letter to Nick and Quinn for their service? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Noon. All right, next we have the communication to appoint Donna Scannell Richards to the Pollard Memorial Library Board of Trustees. I need a motion to adopt.
Move
by
to adopt.
Councilor Milonazo and seconded by Councilor Mercia. Roll call.
On the motion?
Yes.
I'd just like to thank Donna Scannell Richards for actually agreeing to be on the Library Board of Trustees. I actually was fortunate to serve with Donna on the Library Foundation Board, and I know how deeply she cares about the Pollard Library, so we're quite fortunate. I want to thank Kevin Murphy for bringing her nomination forward, so thank you.
No, thank you for those words. I'd just like to have the roll call, then I'm going to ask her to come forward. Roll call, please.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercier.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Richard, mind coming forward?
I don't at all. I want Mayor Samaras and councilors, City Manager Murphy, thank you for your support. I look forward to working with you for the library during this very challenging time. Thank you.
Thank you for your service. Any further discussion? Again, thank you for your service. Next, we have communication for the reappointment of Joanne Keegan to the Board of Health. I need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Councilor Mercier.
Second.
Second by Councilor Noon. Roll call, please.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercier.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Thank you. All right, communication of the city manager requests out-of-state travel for 3 members of the Lowell Police Department. Motion to adopt
So moved. Second.
by Councilor Kennedy and Councilor Noon. Thank you. Roll call.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercier.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
There's no subcommittee information or any preparation for subcommittee. Council Leahy.
Under reports, I just had a report out for the Acre Neighborhood Meeting.
Okay.
So basically, through you to the manager, they had We had the ACA meeting last Wednesday, and they had a few questions on garbage pickup on the barrels behind, on the walkway that goes along the river by the baseball stadium, comes down past the Renaissance clubs, and they didn't know who was responsible for pickup of those barrels. So if we could find out who's responsible and how many times to get picked up, maybe that could be put into the, if it's our responsibility, maybe we could just check on them more and make sure that they're emptied more frequently.
Is that at La Lasha Ballpark?
And across the Aiken Street that goes along the Renaissance buildings.
Okay, on this side, I'm sure you're gonna find out it was our responsibility. On that side, probably Renaissance, but we'll find out
Okay.
who's responsible.
And then one other issue that came up was that on Aiken Street where the recreation center is, seems to be a lot of student traffic, and they just walk out into the street, and I think we've had this discussion before. So if we could set up some sort of meeting with you, Lowell, and figure out how to curb that. The kids just walk right out in front of the cars, and it's, you know, someone's gonna get hurt, so we need to address that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Council Leahy. All right, we have a report from the wire inspector. National Grid, Verizon, New England requests permission to install stub poles at the corner of West Genesis and Rexford Street. A motion to accept and adopt the accompanying orders by Councilor Kennedy, Councilor Mercia. Thank you. All right, next we have petitions. 5, property damage. I need a motion to refer to the Law Department for a report and recommendation.
So moved.
By Councilor Kennedy
Seconded.
and Councilor Cirillo. Then we have, under miscellaneous, Stephen Malagotti requests permission to address the council regarding support of immigrant families. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Malagotti, 200 Market Street. Mr. Mayor, Vice Chair, Mr. Manager, councilors, thank you for your time tonight. I'm going to be brief. Everybody here knows about Lowell's rich history as an immigrant city. Most people agree that immigration has been good for Lowell. We can argue about the original colonists later if you like. Immigration has made Lowell as we know it possible. Nearly 30% of Lowell's current population is from countries of Southeast Asia, particularly those along the Mekong River and its delta. The countries of the Mekong, Laos, Vietnam, Thailand, and Cambodia, are among the most, are being most dramatically affected by climate change and most quickly. The UN panel on climate change estimates there will be 10 million climate refugees from Vietnam alone. Cambodia will be equally impacted due to increased drought, flood, deforestation, and depleted fishing stocks. This is happening already. Thailand will also suffer major impacts of sea level rise. City of Bangkok officials openly talk about relocating 2/3 of the city of Bangkok. 2/3 of the city of Bangkok, massive numbers of poor people, away from increased tidal flooding and devastating typhoons. I also want to mention that Lowell's home to a substantial population of from countries of sub-Saharan Africa, again, one of the areas currently seeing the greatest impacts of climate change. So we can expect climate change to directly affect the lives and families of thousands of Lowell residents in the coming near future. Those now living in Lowell will, of course, find every way possible to help their families and their relatives, and we should help them too. It's who we are. They are us. There's another aspect to this discussion, though, and that's money. World Bank data shows that in 2015, approximately $500 million in US dollars was sent back to Cambodia via remittances. Another $5.2 billion was sent back to Thailand. That's in 1 year. This is vital for the survival of people in these countries, and it represents a good thing, the sharing of wealth from rich to developing nations. But also remember that what is sent there is not spent here. With Lowell having the second largest Cambodian population in the United States, along with substantial populations from Thailand and Vietnam, this represents a fairly large amount of money not being spent in Lowell. That's okay, but remember, as environmental and economic conditions worsen there, it directly affects what families will do here. They'll send more money. So what can we do? The city, Lowell City Council and the state of Massachusetts must take the fact of climate change seriously and act with all expediency to reduce the use of fossil fuels that are worsening climate change every day. The more we can do to reduce carbon fuels now, the less suffering we and our children will have to endure in the future. The city should take its commitment to use 100% clean energy by 2030 as a real, actual necessity. It should establish concrete objectives and meet them. It should wholeheartedly support efforts like solarized Mass, which you're starting to do. It should make sure that structures like the new parking garage being built for the Hamilton project has solar panels and electric vehicle recharging facilities built into the pre-construction design. It should urge the state legislature and our representatives to get current clean energy bills out of committee and act as soon as possible to implement carbon pricing bills now being considered. And understand, whatever we do, whatever we consider today as pragmatic, it's not enough. We're doing damage control. This is damage control. Climate change is not an abstraction. Its effects are impacting people of the Mekong and others now, today, and it'll only get worse. The families of those people live here in Lowell. It's our responsibility to help them in every way we can. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any discussion? Need a motion to accept and place on file?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to send a communication to the City Council Subcommittee on the Environment, and then let that subcommittee do with it what they will, if anything.
I second
I second
Second
it.
by Council Noon. And Council Silverlo. Thank you. We now have, under miscellaneous, Gilmerna Rivera requests installation of a handicap parking sign at 28B Cork Street. Need a motion to refer to the traffic engineer for a report and recommendation by Mr. Councilor Conway and seconded by Councilor Elliott. Thank you. Okay, now under City Council motions. Number 1, 7.1, Councilor Mercier requests city manager review and explore other parcels of land in the downtown that may be available for the extension of the Lowell High School. Second? Councilor Elliott? Councilor Mercier?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me preface my remarks about this motion as follows. My honest and personal feelings for the best site location for the high school is still Collie, but I do respect the voting majority, just as I did with the marijuana issue. I didn't support recreational marijuana, but I do support and recognize the voting majority. With that said, it was not specific in the referendum non-binding question that the option downtown was option 3. What was specific was the chosen location being downtown, but never specifically option 3. What is of concern to me is the desire to still take by eminent domain the doctor's office at 75 Arcan Drive, which I will not support unless they feel otherwise, but it is their choice, not mine. So I offer another possibility through this motion. Let's see and explore other sites in the vicinity of Lowell High School, such as, for example, the old Fred C. Church site that now houses a supposed dorm building that is, from what my understanding is not working in the best interest of what their intentions were. There was talk after the fact, wouldn't it have been ideal if the city had acquired that site in the first place? Well, maybe we can now, but now the building is already built, so let's see what's there. It is fully equipped with elevators. It is handicapped accessible. There is a sprinkler system. There would be no lengthy court order. If for any reason during the renovation process we would have to pay for modular classrooms, this building would serve that purpose, therefore not blocking off streets or tying up traffic. Once renovations are completed, the middle walls in the building could be taken down, and we could reconfigure the building to house proper-sized classrooms. It is worth a conversation. That's why I made this motion. Let's explore other possibilities. I'm just trying to make everybody happy. That's what I'm trying to do with this motion. Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to be able to support this motion. I think this motion sends a confusing message to the MSBA, who we'll be meeting with at the end of the month or on February 1st. And I think at that time, there'll probably be a discussion of the areas around the high school as it exists now, and whether or not there's I know that the swimming pool is going to be an issue on February 1st, and whether the swimming pool is included in the project or not is going to matter, simply because it will, number one, have a significant impact on the cost, and number two, if there's no swimming pool, that leaves a big void of square footage in the new facility that can be used for other things. But I do think that, the referendum, as I understood it, didn't just say downtown, it also had the address of the existing high school on Father Morrishead Boulevard. I just think this, and the only reason I'm really opposed to it is because I just think it sends the wrong message to the MSBA. And I think that they've been good with us, and I think they're going to continue to be good with us, but I think that we have to be clear going forward of what our intentions are, and I think that this motion just muddies up the waters for us.
Any further discussion?
So I'd ask for a roll call at the end of the discussion, please.
Thank you. Councilor Milonazo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand where Councilor Mercier is coming from, and based upon some communications we received from City Manager Murphy, I mean, in the sense that MSBA is looking for us to explore options, I will support the motion, but I will tell you that I am still 110% for option 3. At the end of the day, I'm looking forward to the meeting on February 1st. The manager invited us to go down. I do plan to be there. I can't understand, with all due respect to Councilor Mercier, why you would spend probably 4 times as much of the taxpayer dollars to take that building on, which is now the dormitory, as opposed to the dentist's office. I just don't understand. And a comment about unless they want us to, we may get to a point where they will want us to. Again, from the standpoint of the MSBA asking us to have a unified voice, asking us to explore options, I will support the motion, but again, at the end of the day, I am 110% for option 3. I do think, though, that as we move forward, that we need to give some consideration to parking for Cobblestone's restaurant in that location. I think that we can design the new high school where we could allow parking for Cobblestones once the dentist office is gone and the high school is built. Again, I think that's just being a good neighbor. So again, if we're going to explore other parcels, it has to certainly be more than just the one that Councilor Mercier said, and we do need, in my opinion, to have a unified voice on February 1st. And I don't want the editor, with all due respect to Todd Feathers, I don't want the editor of the Lowell Sun, if this motion passes, to say, option 3 is going away. It absolutely, from where I sit, is not going away. So, thank you.
Further discussion? Councilor Elliott?
I think Councilor Milonazo said it exactly what SBA wanted us to do at that meeting. Explore all options. And I think this is exactly what this does. So I'm going to support it. At this point, why don't we explore anything that could save taxpayer money? So I think it speaks exactly, we're following exactly what the SBA says, and I agree. I'm going to attend that meeting and see exactly what the specific directions and what the requirements that the SBA wants. So, thank you.
Councilor Noon?
Thank you, Mayor. I know the referendum is clear. It's clear that those who support the referendum and those who support, say, the Lowell High School want option 3. You look at the campaign ad that they sent out to that they distributed, it said option 3. It's clear, though, for me, I think the voters have spoken, and, you know, I'm here to deliver that. You know, the other concerns that I have, I understand, you know, why the private dormitory came to play now, due to the fact that they not have a full occupancy. At best, they would have 35% occupancy. And out of those 35% occupancy, not all of them are UMass students. And that concern, the first place, you know, when this development came to play. So anyhow, that said, I just want to, you know, need to send a clear message to the MSBA that, you know, we are for option 3, and the voter, the referendum, you know, passed for option 3. And so I can't support the motion.
Councilor Sorrell?
Hi, yes. I worked very hard on getting the referendum on the ballot, and it was clear to me that it was for option 3, and so I understand that Councilor Mercier is trying to view all options, but I cannot support this because I strictly am for downtown option 3.
Councilor Conway, and
Yeah.
Councilor Leahy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that certainly during the election, it was perfectly clear, not only by the referendum, but also the candidates that were pro downtown, where the people felt. And as far as I'm concerned, and I agree with Councilor Milanazzo, I will vote yes on this motion. However, I want to make it perfectly clear that I am 100% for downtown option 3, with no other option, option 3. So again, I think that I want to make sure that the press, newspaper, makes it clear to the public and not cloud this situation, at least as far as I'm concerned here. I think that as far as what one of the councilors said, that at the end of the day, we do need a unified front so that they understand exactly where we want to have this high school. So again, I will go along with the motion, but again, 100% for option 3. Thank you.
Councilor Leahy?
Thank you. I just want to say that, you know, I think this motion is fine. It doesn't say anything about not doing option 3. All it does is say, look at the options. We all know that in the beginning, we promised a pool for downtown. And then we come to find out that if we do option 3, most likely there isn't a pool. So we do option 3, there's no pool. And all this motion does is say, look, if we end up that the pool is important and we keep the field house and we move buildings around, that's all we're doing is looking at different options. So, you know, I can say most of us, yeah, we're for option 3. But if the pool is an issue and we need a pool, then we're gonna have to change our plans slightly. So let's not be so rigid about this. You know, and their explanation is we're gonna argue it and convince them that we need a pool and they should pay for it. Well, that's not 100%. So just make that clear that we do downtown, option 3, most likely there's no pool. And all this motion does is say, look, if we change our plans on the pool, we look at a few options and the school stays downtown.
Councilor Noon?
Mayor Samaras.
Now, Councilor Mercier has made a good motion in the sense of getting more information. I always approve of anything that seeks more information, but I do believe we have that information in hand. Mr. Manager, I mean, when we looked at the downtown, we've looked at the high school area. Have we looked at all of the land contiguous to the high school?
We've looked at different parcels, but, we looked at a small parcel across the street where the Songus Arena is located, but that was less than an acre.
That's it. I mean, there really is nothing else. There's the housing across the street on Arcan Drive, I believe, from the gymnasium. You have the housing, you have the dentist's office, you have the parking garage. The high school's pretty much enclosed, enveloped, and there's not that much land. The only thing you had really is the land that was Riley Insurance, the bank, Lowell 5, and that's gone. Well, the thing is, I really cannot support the motion for the following reasons. I, too, think it sends the wrong message to the MSBA. What I heard them say, or what I read, was that they told us to look at the options. The options have already been spelled out, whether you're going to build a building, just renovation and addition, or the option 3. And I think if we're not careful, we're going to send the wrong information. I think the media will have a field day on this in a sense of, why can't we do this? Why can't we take over the dorms? It's a $24 million project, and it doesn't fit what is necessary for a high school, whether it's classroom space or gymnasium space. It was designed for students to be their residents. So to use something like that, I think it would be far costly and not give us what our students need. I strongly support option 3. I believe it's the right thing to do. It's not that I want to see the dentist's office pushed out, but I've said many times before that I think we can work with the dentist to find them another location within the city that speaks to what they already have, and I think it could be a win-win situation for everybody. And my concern is that with the MSBA, we're consistent in what we do. They told us to look at the options. What I look at, not options for other locations. The option was for downtown, and there are several options that we gave them, and I think that's what they want. My belief is that's what they want clarification on, not something new. So during the roll call, I cannot vote to support this motion.
Councilor Mercy.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. The MSBA said, check your options. Don't you think they know we've already went through all our options? And some chose Colley and some chose the downtown option 3. They're asking us again to review it, and perhaps we can come up with a better idea for a particular option without taking doctors' offices down. That's what I'm asking, to just explore that. Through you, Mr. Vice Mayor, to the city manager. Mr. Manager, did you ever go and approach this property to see if it's available? It probably isn't even available. I don't know. I'm just asking, can we just try to look and see if it is? What is the alternative if we did that? I said, what is the problem with that? As far as the referendum question goes, my interpretation may be wrong, but the downtown site was the overwhelming majority of what the voters wanted. Didn't necessarily say on there option 3 when I voted with that question. I never seen it say downtown option 3. You're assuming that the voters went to the polls and voted for the downtown option 3 when it simply said downtown renovation. Downtown renovation. I'm sorry I don't have it with me word for word. It never said, you're assuming what you think the voters meant. They did outstandingly mean downtown. They never ever said option 3. I think in my interpretation is they thought Collie probably was not the best site. That's their opinion. They thought it was probably too much. They voted for the downtown renovation, hoping it would be much more financially feasible. And I don't think out of all the options, downtown option 3 is the most financially feasible. I'm only interpreting my belief, but I think they wanted the downtown location site with something that they could afford. That's the interpretation they gave me. That's all I got out of this non-binding referendum question. I appreciate the fact they want it downtown. I'll support the downtown. They're majority rules, in my opinion, but it never said you want option 3. That's my take on it, and I don't have a problem with exploring that. Nobody wants to explore it, that's fine, but that, I would like to just check into that, that's all.
Councilor Allen?
Move the question.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
No.
Mayor Samaras.
No.
Counsel Cirillo.
No.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
No.
Pass.
5 yeas.
Mayor?
Next motion by Councilor Mercia. Request City Council name the basketball court at the Butler Shaughnessy School on Gorham Street in honor of Lawrence Kavanaugh Sr. Councilor Mercia?
Do we have a second
I
here?
know, sorry, second, Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. This is a motion that comes at the request of the family of Lawrence Kavanaugh Sr. to name a basketball court at the Butler Shaughnessy School in his honor. Let me tell you a little bit about this remarkable man. Mr. Kavanaugh was a lifelong resident of Lowell and a communicant of the former Sacred Heart Parish, where he served as an altar boy and was a graduate of Lowell High School. Upon graduation, Larry served in the United States Army, and he went on to spend his entire working career in the United States Postal Service in Lowell and Woburn until his retirement in 1991. Other than his family, the game of basketball was Larry's passion. Larry played on the New England State Champion CYO team from the Sacred Heart in 1949. That was his neighborhood, and he was a standout point guard at Lowell High School. In 1953, Larry joined the IAABO, that's the International Association of Approved Basketball Official, Boston Board 27, and he became an active basketball referee. In 1959, Larry was instrumental in the founding of IAABO Board 95 in Lowell as a charter member and was the only remaining original member in 2017. He was elected as IAABO 95 president in 1978 and as a rules interpreter in 1982, a position which he held to train all area officials for 31 years until his retirement and emeritus advisory position in April of 2014. Larry had an outstanding career as an active basketball official that spanned 35 years at both the high school and collegiate levels. At the college level, he worked ECAC, Ivy League, Big East, and the former Yankee Conference. At the high school level, he worked nearly every major conference in northeastern Massachusetts and southern New Hampshire, and presided over numerous MIAA and Tech Tourney championships at the old Boston Garden. In 1992, he received the prestigious award of the IAABO Life Membership from the international organization. For many years, Larry served as the program director for the Casey Jones All-Pro Basketball Camp, as well as the director of basketball at the adult and youth level for the City of Lowell Recreation Department. If there was a basketball game being played in the Lowell area, Larry was somehow involved with it. He was also an avid golfer and was a member of Mount Pleasant Country Club, where he hit a hole-in-one on 2 occasions. Larry lived across the street from the Butler Shaughnessy School, where he coached basketball at the very court that I am asking my colleagues to support the naming of in his honor and his memory. This is a motion that would have been generated by my former colleague, Danny Rourke, who asked me to bring it forward on his behalf, and I am honored to do so. I would ask for a roll call vote and also ask that if this motion passes, that we send it over to the Board of Parks to put it on their agenda for their approval, and that would be on January 31st. And if it passes, I will attend that meeting to speak on this motion if it is successful. Thank you very much. And I'd ask for a roll call.
Councilor Elliott?
I just want to say briefly, this is a great motion. When we talk about people who give back to the community and dedicate hundreds and hundreds, and probably in Larry's case, thousands of hours of volunteer service and his commitment to the sports. We talk about keeping kids busy. We run organized sports, but you need officials. You need officials to train and to officiate. And I can't say enough. I mean, Councilor Mercier listed his resume and his commitment and all of his accomplishments. And I think this is the least that we can do. Probably the last thing that Larry would want. But I can remember seeing him for years and years at every court, perhaps in this city, coaching with my kids. And
Thank you.
it's a pleasure to support this motion.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a great motion. The least we could do as a council to honor someone who giving their time and energy to help the young the youth in our community. So fully supported.
Councilor Mercier?
Thank you. One last thing that I thought of. Larry's daughter, Donna Rafferty, was going to be here this evening, but as we speak, she's coaching herself for basketball. So I said, you know what, I can handle it. Stay there with your family. I'll be here doing my job. Thank you.
If no further discussion, we'll have a roll call.
Council Leahy? Yes. Council Mercier?
Yes.
Council Milonazo?
Yes.
Council Noon?
Yes.
Mayor Samaras?
Yes.
Council Cirillo?
Yes.
Council Conway?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy?
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, from Councilor Conway, request city manager meet with the superintendent of police, superintendent of schools, and other interested parties to reestablish a safety task force.
Second.
Second by Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we had the police chief here last week, and he talked about the improvements and how safe the city is, which I think we all agree. But I think what we always strive to do is to make things better. And that's why I put this motion on, because I think that let me explain just briefly what this motion is all about. If going back into the early 2000s, there was a safety task force that was formed actually out of Attorney General Riley's office. And Mayor Samaras was very instrumental in this process too. And the purpose was actually to create another tool for the police department to make the streets and the schools, the citizens of Lowell, a safer place. And in Lowell, what it ended up doing is that we would meet with this task force, and it was an incredible exchange of ideas, but actually more important than that, it was an exchange of information. And at that particular time, it was held at the high school, and police, we would meet once a week for perhaps a half an hour, 45 minutes, and people that were there, and I'm just going to name a few areas. The task force was actually made up of individuals from central administration, the headmaster, housemasters, guidance counselors, security, SROs, also the courts, DYS, DSS, police administration, gang units, drug units, Attorney General's office, and MOA. They obviously were not there all at once, But these were the sectors that certainly tried to make the city a safer place. And again, it faded away, and I would love to see that come back. I talked to a number of police officers, and again, it's just another tool to make to help the police and also to make the city a safer place. And I think it certainly shows an incredible way that partnerships with the city officials actually work together to help our citizens. So I would appreciate support on that motion. Thank you.
Councilor Noon?
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is one of the other very good motion to restart this task force. I recall, because I worked with at the District Attorney Office, Tom Rowley, at the time. This task force is very instrumental in terms of preventative, one of the two, where you bring player to the table, as Councilor Conway indicated, from the court, from DSS, DYS, school, city official, police, fire. The aim is to share information sharing and go beyond that, and also more of a preventative tool. And from there, they expanded to other program, other task force. But this task force, a great idea to bring this task force back so that we have a share of information and preventative before anything happens. So great motion, Councilor Conway.
Councilor Elliott?
Yeah, I think this is good. Anytime you put a task force, I mean, safety is first, whether it's in our schools and throughout the city. Times change, and we have to change with different strategies. And I think these whether it's a task force or commission or committee, it's an exchange of ideas to see what other communities do in other cities, other towns, to stay ahead of the curve, to try to adopt what's working in other communities and what is not. Otherwise, we stick with policies that sometimes can become stale. So I think it makes sense. I'm going to support it. And I mean, especially in light of what's taking place in other parts of the country with our schools, that's what we need to stay ahead of. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, it's a good motion. Councilor Noon brings up, District Attorney Rowley, who came in and worked with Ed Davis and gave us great support. But it allowed the House Masters to bring students before this group to be able to discuss what could happen. In other words, do these young men and women have a vision? Do they have a chance to succeed? And we talked about the resources that we could need to help them out. So I support the motion because it's something it's really needed in today's world for the young people. Mr. Conway has the next motion. Request city manager to update the council regarding the status of the Crime Stoppers Hotline.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be honest with you, I really didn't know.
Oh, I'm sorry, second.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
It is into the motion. Thank you, Councilor Mercia.
I want to be honest that I really did not know much about the Crime Stoppers Hotline. I talked to a few police officers and asked them what could we do to make their job more effective and efficient. And they happened to bring up this Crime Stoppers Hotline. And when I started to do a little bit of research on it, I found it was actually, it has blossomed into an international information about criminal activity. And it actually started going back into 1976, where in a particular city, there was a murder case, and the police chief wasn't able to get any leads at all. So we sat down with the media and different people from the community, and they developed this type of a program where people were afraid, I think, to call in and give any information. So they made it anonymous, and they also put some monies to information that would lead to the arrest and the conviction. And it said within a matter of a couple weeks, they did get the information, and they were successful in putting the person in jail. So when I, again, talked to the police, they thought that it's something I think we have on the books, but I don't think that we're utilizing it perhaps as strong as we should. And I'd like to ask the city manager if he could just look into that and give us a report on the status of the Crime Stoppers hotline and what we can do to bring that to a full capacity. So again, another tool for the police officers to help us out and to make the city a safer place. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, motion approved. Now from Councilor Noon, request city manager have city solicitor meet in the executive session with the council to discuss all current or potential legal actions to be taken against the city and any legal challenges anticipated by the administration against any entity. Second?
Second.
By Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Noon.
Mr. Mayor, motion speak for itself. I just want to see if, city solicitor can provide us some information on that and go to executive session so we know what's going on, what we up against, and what's pending and what resolved and stuff like that. So,
City manager, want to answer that?
Yes, we try and do this every 6 months, so this is good timing, and we'll be prepared very shortly to do that.
that's fast. Thank you.
Okay. Motion passed. Okay, next, Councilor Noon, request city council have appropriate subcommittee hold meeting to determine methods on how to best protect senior residents from being victims of fraud. Said meeting should include interested entities such as Elderly Commission and the Massachusetts Attorney General Office. Councilor Noon?
I know that.
I need a second.
Oh, second. I know that Attorney General Office have the elder division that they help the senior citizens in terms of issues of fraud and any elder victim of fraud and so on. So that's why I put it up so that we can partner with the Attorney General Office and other entities, including these other commissions, to see what we can do to help elders in terms of education, prevention, and so on. And down at the bottom, I see you actually heard my motion, so Mr. Mayor, and I see you have your motion. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Motion passed. Okay, next from Councilor Kennedy, requires city manager consider installing water detection devices at strategic locations in all municipal buildings throughout the city. Councilor Kennedy?
Second.
Second by Councilor Cirillo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This motion was really, this item was brought to my attention by an interested party, but I think it's something good to consider. It would be nice if we had already had this in place, but we didn't. But there's no reason why we couldn't going forward. And basically what it is it's a little device about the size of a hockey puck, maybe a little bit bigger, that you can place, say, on the 4th floor of the library, that would have detected when there was water and sent out a signal, a Wi-Fi signal, so that the commissioner of DPW or the appropriate party would have been notified that there was there was a water issue on that floor, and would have taken care of the problem before it had gotten to the extreme that it did. I mean, the estimates that I have is that the damage over at the library will be $350,000. I think the manager said maybe a couple of meetings ago that the deductible for the city is $500,000, which would then mean that we're on the hook for all $350,000. These devices are $80 a piece. And I'll leave this with you. There's several different devices, and probably there's probably one on this page that individual homeowners could use if they have additional usage. But the purpose of the motion is focused on making sure that we don't have an accident like we had over at the library again in another municipal building. So I would think that it would be wise for the city to consider these devices, which are $80 a piece, in all municipal buildings, including all of the schools, because what happened at the library could just as easily have happened at one of our schools. And if it had happened, for instance, on a Friday night at certain schools, it would have been the same thing, and there would have been a great amount of damage. So I would like for the city manager to look into this and maybe give us a report on whether or not this is a good idea, and how soon we can do something like this if it makes sense. While I'm discussing the library and the damage over there, I did have an opportunity. Last Friday, I attended the Mass Municipal annual meeting and trade show down in Boston, along with several other people from the city. And while there, I ended up having a conversation with the Lieutenant Governor, who immediately brought up the library, which had been in the news and on television and so forth. And I explained to her that the estimate was about $350,000 and that the deductible was $500,000, and so that it was an unforeseen cost of $350,000 that the city was going to have to incur. And she indicated to me that the Division of Capital Assets and Management may have some money available that would help defray that cost and maybe lessen the city's financial burden as a result of the tragedy that took place over in the library. So I had a follow-up conversation with the Lieutenant Governor today, and she promised me that she would get back to me tomorrow. But I do think that that's something that that maybe the manager's office wants to look into with the Lieutenant Governor, and maybe you know, maybe instead of $350,000, we can get some money for that building. So it's basically those two things. You know, the motion is having to do with the devices, but I also think that the council would like to know that there's a possibility that we could secure some funding for the cost of renovating the library. Thank you.
Discussion? Motion adopted. Thank you. Councilor Elliott requests City Manager and Building Department provide a report regarding all abandoned homes in the city.
Second.
And second by Councilor Mercia.
I will be brief because the motion does speak for itself, but this motion is as a result of the presentation last week from the Attorney General's office, and I think it's an initiative that clearly will be very helpful for the neighborhood of Centerville, but as we all spoke of last week, there's other homes that are abandoned that are bank-owned or otherwise. So my thought is, while they are introducing this program certainly to the city and to that neighborhood, in the meantime, perhaps the city can, we can get an inventory and perhaps concurrently, sort of emulate or simulate what they're doing with that particular initiative on the city side. Now is the time to do it. I mean, housing, I'm really, when you think about it, it's kind of sad that banks are sitting on these abandoned parcels and we can't get receivers. The housing demand is at its greatest, not only here in the city, but throughout the Commonwealth. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to sort of piggyback on the Attorney General's initiative, and at the same time, let's keep this going while we do have receivers that are interested, and keep them interested, knowing that we are going to develop our own program, if you will, and continue. So I don't know if you know, generally speaking, Mr. Manager, how many, we know that the AG's office is going to be doing 15 to 18. Generally speaking, how many do we have in the city? Do we have any idea? Is it 50? Is it 100? Is it 500? Or
Not 50, not 500.
No.
But I don't want to guess.
Yeah, right.
I know Mr. Slagle has already produced such a list in the past, so it's not going to be that difficult for him to compile one, and we'll get it to you as quickly as possible.
I just think when opportunity knocks, we have to answer, and now is a great time to do it, where the market is saturated, and clearly it's a time where we can develop, rehab these homes that are abandoned, that are eyesores in the neighborhood, and put them back on. So that's probably a long-winded explanation on the motion, but we look forward to that report and see where we go from there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that this is a very good motion. I think that we should be able to craft some sort of program that would imitate what the Attorney General's office is doing. But I think at the very at the very least, it would be good to have an inventory of all of the abandoned properties that there are in the city, and apparently we don't know that right now. So rather than to make it a guessing game, if we can develop a list that would include all of those properties, I think we'll then know just what we're dealing with in terms of the size of the problem. So I think it's a good motion going forward. Thank you.
Council Cirillo? Oh, you're all set. Any further discussion? Council Leahy?
This is a good motion to get that under control. I also wanted to ask the manager, are we gonna be, not only the abandoned homes, but the burnt-out buildings and stuff, was there a motion to get quarterly reports and, I'm gonna put another motion on next week to get that list too, because we've got houses like on Wilder Street and Clark Road that have fire damage, and, you know, it's been a long time now, and these houses need to be fixed up. The one on Wilder Street especially, he got shut down for not.
Yeah, right, that's
following-
156?
Yeah, he's not
Just get
following-
building permits to do it.
It does finally?
So, yeah, finally, he's making some movement. But no, I think that, we'll, as part of the report, I'll ask Mr. Slagle to see about any fire damage that,
Yeah, and Clark Road's a nuisance too. That's been
the whole road, or?
the whole road. But I forget the number, but they've had a fire there.
Oh,
and
I
the
know,
guys
is there a
living in the
trailer
front-
there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
I saw
that's-
that, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I saw that.
That's been too long, so,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay.
Council Elliott, then Council Kennedy.
Just a quick question on that. Mr. Manager, there's a lot of city solicitors, don't we have an ordinance? I don't know, was it Council Milonazo filed the motion? I don't know. It was a number of years ago where we had a number of these buildings that had fire damage, and I believe Council Caulfield came and spoke on it one night and put some time frame that the either property owner or insurance company has to settle, because more often than not, it's fire damage, and they're waiting for settlement. But they'd sit for months and months. I think it was on Westford Street, quite frankly, that had some of those problems, and I thought we adopted. Is there an ordinance in place, or is it state statute that governs the?
Councilor Leahy brought that,
Oh,
that
Councilor Leahy.
motion.
Well,
Okay,
we
so-
brought that in a while ago, trying to see if we could have something done within 6 months.
Right, and the
So-
problem is, in all fairness to the homeowners, the insurance companies are so slow in adjusting these claims, and it's difficult to set a time frame, because we like to work with them if they aren't being treated properly by the insurance company. But we'll have Mr. Slagle do a report on that one also.
No, but Mr. Mayor, just follow up. But conversely, some of these are 2-3 families, and they're absentee landlords. And I'm thinking of one like right off Powell Street. It has to have been sitting there, Powell and I think Queen Street. It's been sitting there for, it's got to be going on its second year now, and they're finally doing some, spotty, construction or cleaning up the place. So I understand that point, but the flip side is we shouldn't have to, unless you live in the neighborhood and complain about it, nothing's going to get done.
Maybe we can draft an ordinance where we give a set amount of time, like 6 months, but then for extenuating circumstances, we can extend it if they can prove that.
Okay, I think that makes sense.
Yep.
It helps the building inspectors too.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Council Kennedy?
Thank you. If I could just comment on what Council Leahy brought up regarding the property on Clark Road. That is one of the oldest homes on Clark Road. I believe that fire was at the end of last year's Super Bowl, which is practically a year. And at this point, the building is not even boarded up. It's still exposed. And it's evident when you drive by that they've done no work there. That trailer's been there for a long time. There seems to be work being done to the barn, and there also seems to be a lot of stuff in the back of the building, boats and so forth. But I just do not understand, and I've never put in a motion on that property, but I did a few months ago, actually, at the request of one of the abutting neighbors, ask that the proper department look into it, but I never got a response from them. But I do think that, maybe insurance companies are slow, but a whole year, and if they're doing work on the barn in the back, why aren't they doing any work whatsoever on the house up front? So it would be good to get a report on that property. and find out what the owner's intentions are?
Yeah, I'm going to look into Clark Road and Powell and Queen Streets. Wilder Street has pulled their building permits, and we'll get a report from Mr. Slagle on them.
Okay.
Yep.
All set? Councilor Noon?
Mayor Samara's motion requesting the City Council establish subcommittee to address any issue regarding senior citizen and non-profit organization in the city.
Second.
Second by
Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy. Mayor Samaras.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Mayor Noon. We have, much of the work that's done by this city council is done through the subcommittees. The subcommittees is a chance to give our constituents a lot of information as to what's going on when you talk about economic development. If you're talking about safety, it really works. But I'd like to add these two, one on seniors. The seniors are our most vulnerable people, if you think about it. But the thing is, many suffer issues in housing, food, transportation, safety, heating, medical aid, medicine. And sometimes there's a lot of support systems out there, but I've talked to so many that really don't know where to go. And I think it's incumbent that we have a subcommittee that can not only work from this chamber, but actually go to the senior center, set up nights where we listen to our seniors. What are some of the issues? Are we meeting their issues? Is life good for them? You know, you reach a certain age in this system or this city, it should be with, you know, a type of support system that states that we care for you and we're going to work for you. We're going to help you. And I think basically the motion speaks for itself, but it's something that has to be done to assure that our citizens are getting the right type of support that they need. The next is the nonprofits. When you think about nonprofits in the city of Lowell, basically half the downtown is made up of nonprofit organizations. They are very large organizations. When you talk about a nonprofit, Lowell General is a nonprofit. University of Middlesex Community College, they're nonprofits. But the CBA, Community Teamwork, the Community Health Center, then you go into House of Hope, you go into Girls Inc., so many organizations that are all designed to help us reach out to those in need. But what I'd like to see is sometimes we're at cross purposes. We have issues that we have to deal with, the opioid crisis. There are issues we have to deal with panhandlers. It creates a myriad of problems for us. And I think if this city is going to address those issues, we have to have a closer working relationship between the city administration, the city council, and these organizations. So I really feel that by having a subcommittee just dealing with the nonprofits will allow for better communications. These two motions are all about assuring that our seniors have communication to the runnings of this city and what the city can offer as support, and the nonprofits are able to work with us, work together to solve a myriad of problems that cities are faced with. I think we do a good job in so many ways. It's just that if we have a better communication process, it'll work to everybody's benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I think these are two great areas for subcommittee discussion. I'm especially interested in the senior citizens because I am one, nonetheless. But I do have an occasion, different times, to go over to the senior center, and I do hear some of their problems. And as quite recently, the council previously heard about the Roadrunner and how the Roadrunner is federally funded, and they pick up people for doctor's appointments, and we needed another bus and a driver. LRTA was giving us a bus, but we had no driver, and the manager, Kevin Murphy, came through for us. and provided the funding to put another driver in the seat of that bus. Because although I'm a certain age and I can make it to the senior center, and if I wanted to play bingo and didn't have a job, I would be there. But the fact is, not everybody has the same physical health. There are a few senior, well, not a few, quite a lot, that don't have the way to get there, don't probably have the money for a cab or a bus, but they are allowed to take a road runner, but they're on the back burner, so they needed this bus to get them there. We take things for granted in this world. We think that just because we can do it, we can buy it, we can get it. Many people can't. And they live to go to bingo and socialize. That's the only interaction a lot of the seniors have. So these are the small issues to me, but the big issues to them. So this is a very good motion that allows the seniors to feel a part of the city. Now, I know you probably don't know, but sometimes they feel left out. And isn't it ironic that we have a youth subcommittee? So this is on the other spectrum and the other end. I think this is a very good motion where we try to be inclusive for everybody. Maybe minorities feel not included. So do the seniors, believe it or not. A lot of them feel like we're not listening to their problems. So this motion for a subcommittee for the seniors allows us to do that. So very good, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much.
Mayor Samaras?
Councilor Mercia gave some very simple descriptions of what this would entail. That's what it's all about. It's about reaching out. And sometimes we think that we've addressed so many of the issues of the seniors, but truly we haven't. So I feel that the subcommittee will do very well. And do you want to guess who's going to be the chair of who have asked to be the chair of the subcommittee? I wish Councilor Mercia well, because she will deal with this.
Rightfully so.
She'll deal with this
Yes.
issue. Thank you.
Any other comment on the motion? Motion adopt. Any announcement?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to announce that every member of the city council received a letter from a resident from downtown that was here before the city council several months ago talking about parking rates for seniors and how they are reduced. And what she's indicating in her communication is that to this point, still in the parking garages, the rates are not posted. So could you, Mr. Manager, could you get in touch with the parking department and ask them to make sure that those are done? That was, I forget how long ago that woman came in, but it was several months ago. And I think everybody that night expected that was going to be posted forthwith, and it's still not there.
I've personally viewed it, and they are posted, but I will get a confirmation from Mr. Navin.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Kennedy. Any announcement? I hear motion to adjourn. Oh, Councilor Murphy. Second. Second by Councilor Serraro. Motion. We adjourn. See you next week.